Hello again, everyone. Welcome to our second live dispatch from AGBT in Orlando, Florida. Gen's Deputy Editor-in-Chief, Julianna LeMieux, has made the annual pilgrimage down to this incredibly important meeting. And Julianna, I think going into it, you knew that there was going to be a lot of exciting news, new instruments, new technologies, new applications. And it doesn't sound like the conference is disappointed this year.
No, as usual, it's just been especially since the last time that we spoke, which I know is just on the first day of the conference, it's just
Yeah.
been an absolute nonstop whirlwind of news and announcements and upgrades and yeah, just everything. So it's
Well,
been great and a lot of fun.
Well, we'll pick up from where we left off sometime on
Yep.
Tuesday afternoon, and do refer to your notes because I know this. It's you don't get much sleep at these meetings, and because the conversations go on way past the actual sessions, and that's where
Yeah.
the cool, exciting stuff happens. But what happened Tuesday evening? Let's pick things up from there.
Yeah, Tuesday evening, I'll say like just a quick note. It's always the women's networking event, which is
Mm.
just an event I really enjoy. It's a nice time to meet new people. And for me, I spend so much time focusing on the technology and stuff just to, you know, bump into someone and say, "Oh, what do you do?" And, why are you here? And I also bumped into someone I've known for many years now, actually, Giovanna Prout, and she was the former CEO of Scale and is now at a new company called Countable Labs. So again, just bumping into old friends and catching up. And yeah, and it's sponsored by a lot of companies. It's a nice event. Yeah. And then after that on Tuesday, so Tuesday night, I was invited to the Vizgen suite, which was terrific, and sat through their talk where they announced a series of new advances in their platform, the Merscope Ultra platform. So a lot of like nuts and bolts in this meeting, like workflow innovations, downstream and bioinformatic improvements. But then one thing that definitely caught my eye, Kevin, is that I really like organoids and organoid research, and organoids can be really hard to do spatial on for multiple different reasons. But the Merscope platform actually is quite well suited to it. And so they showed some really nice spatial organoid data at the end, which was really, I thought, very, very cool. So I'm excited to see how, that more spatial data and spatial research in organoids because of this. Yeah.
And I guess we should mention you're hosting our first spotlight, a mini summit on organoids. How could we forget to plug that?
That's next. Yeah.
March the 11th, please go to the Gen website and register. Hans Cleavers is the star attraction
Yeah.
on a fun 2.5 hour program there. We briefly touched, going back to AGBT, Julianne, we briefly touched on Illumina. Was there anything more you wanted to say about what they presented at their lunchtime workshop?
Yeah, I did. So yeah, I mean, I know last time we spoke, I said, it's a big multi-omics focus, and that's 100% true. But I did want to mention that so several years ago, 2 years ago, actually, we learned about this constellation mapping technology that they have. And so they really talked about that and launched that here. But it has a new name. It's called TruPath Genome. So this is like, it's not long reads, it's short reads, but they say like with long read, information or long read, long distance insights, actually, that, careful not to call it long reads, but it's a really nice technology where the DNA kind of sits in different wells, and then through different mechanisms, they can kind of link it all back together so that they can now, using their short read sequencing technology, connect that one DNA molecule, and then they get data like phasing, structural variants. So, repeat expansion. So accessing long read insights using their short read technology. So yeah, I didn't want to gloss over that.
Right, right. Yeah, imputing or building long reads from their short read, which they do incredibly well, of course, has been a long-standing challenge. What about some of the other sponsors, the big sponsors of AGBT? I guess Bruker is one of them.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Illumina's gold, and then the three silver are Bruker, Ultima, which we talked about last
Yeah.
time, and Roche, of course, which we're anticipating. So then there were two silver lunch talks yesterday. So that was Ultima, which was just building on like what we talked about before. I mean, in these lunch talks, it's nice because the company talks for like 10 or 15 minutes, but then they have like a lot of customer data to show, which was a nice, addition to what we had learned about from them on Monday. And then Bruker. So Bruker, so we need to just understand the history of Bruker for a second and how they're here making like so strong and spatial at the moment. So if you remember, 2 years ago was when NanoString announced, it was the night before AGBT, and they were announced their bankruptcy. And then just a couple of months after that, they were acquired by Bruker. And then last year, so then it was like Bruker was here in a real spatial way for really, I think I want to say the first time, but like in a new way, like because they had the geomics and the cosmics and all the nanostring technology and all the nanostring people and all of that. So, and they talked about some other new technologies at that time. They're called CellScape and PaintScape, but they didn't have products necessarily last year. But so then this year, they're just building on top of that and they're launching these two new products. So last year, we were introduced to this technology. Now they're actual systems. So CellScape is a spatial proteomics platform, and PaintScape is 3D genome visualization. And, they still have geomics and cosmics going strong. And they announced also this week for cosmics the whole mouse transcriptome. So they've been doing whole human transcriptome for a long time, but now they're doing the whole mouse transcriptome. So Bruker, coming in hot with the spatial stuff. Lots there. So yeah.
A couple of other companies I know you wanted to mention. 10x, of course, is always a big powerhouse at AGBT. What have they got to say for themselves?
Well, so actually, that's the news this year, Kevin. So 10X has been real quiet for
Oh,
probably the first time. And you're right. 10X has a long history of big sponsorship, launching here and everything. So their quietness this year is the news, I think.
oh,
But what I'll say is that we all received in our hotel rooms, I think yesterday, these chocolate bars that from 10X that is like so AGBT that have a date. And so the date is 4/18/26. So
ah,
something is coming in 2 months from now. And I think that the chocolate bars have done their job because there's been a lot of speculation about what is coming. And so actually it's kind of interesting how they have not had like a sponsor or I mean, I think they're a contributing sponsor, but like a big sponsor presence,
right.
but they're still getting some buzz. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
And who else? Cellanome is another company that has struck you.
Yep. So last night, so we go to dinner last night, and then there's 2 hours of night talks. And so one of the talks that I was in last night was Cellanome, kind of talking about their new technology. So you may remember this is Jay Flatley's most recent company, and together with Gary Schroth, who also was at Illumina for many, many years.
Yeah.
Gary's the CSO of Cellanome. So Gary was the speaker and
Uh-huh.
walked us through this technology, which they call cell cage technology.
Uh-huh.
And the thing that's interesting is that they can put cells, kind of like adhere them, and then they build these cages around them so that they can stay there with media and keeping them alive. And so they can measure transcriptomics kind of over the course of time. And, as they're changing functionality or say, adding different things to them. So they showed some data. I mean, they showed videos of how this works really. And so they showed glia cells that were phagocytosing bacteria. And so you can see the glia that are actively doing this. And then at the same time, they can be measuring changes in the transcriptome and this is just one example. They said that they've been able to do this with like, they had a whole list, like many, many, many different cells. And they also showed neurons they laid down in their platform or technology and they could let the neurons grow for 2 weeks. And so it's like you can do these long time, mapping of things. So yeah, that was pretty exciting. I think it was super cool actually. Yeah.
Yeah, Gary Schroth, yes, a big presence from Illumina in the early days.
Yeah.
So good to see him
Well, and
doing
Jay
more
Flatley, it's like,
doing more than just blogging.
yeah, no, this is super cool. So it'll be
Very
interesting to
nice.
see where that goes.
Yeah, good. And I guess the big elephant in the room, as we wrap up shortly, Juliana, is Roche and what they're about. I guess predicted or hope you think are going to announce something later today.
I mean, That's what I mean, they just have to, they have to, this is what we've been waiting for with this platform. So yeah, so some of the instrument is here. I mean, they've had the instrument out before, so it's not like an unveiling or anything. In fact, I think the box was here last AGBT, but and they've had it at other meetings as well. But like there's still some question marks that really need to be filled in. So the reagent cost, the final specs on the machine, um, and when it'll be available. So there's like the nuts and bolts. Yeah.
And
So
is the
yeah,
perception that this is really going head to head with Illumina's portfolio or or instruments or
it's so hard. It's like, here's the deal. It's like, it
yeah.
definitely might, but we don't know how,
Okay.
we don't know the final accuracy, the final throughput, the final speed, the final cost. Those are the parameters that everyone needs in order to be able to start to say, okay, this is going to do
Yeah.
this and this is going to do this. So it's just like, I can't even speculate. It's way too early to say. We need what's coming in an hour from now. And actually,
Okay.
I was supposed to be in the air at this moment, but evidently airports in New York City are still a mess. So I'm here. So I think I'm going to be able to stay for like the first 30 minutes. But we'll definitely be able to talk about it all on Monday in my Gen Live show that we talked about last time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Remind
four
us who you've
guests.
got on the show.
Okay, remind you. Okay, so Jasmine Plummer will be joining me, Catherine Aquino, who's a core director, Charlie Johnson, another core director, and then Nick Banovich, who's a spatial researcher at TGen.
Great.
So by that time, we will have
Yeah.
fully digested all the Roche information. And I think I want to say, because we're kind of, I mean, the meeting ends tonight, so I think that's probably the last. That's the last. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we haven't even really begun to talk about some of the cool science that I'm sure you've heard.
Yeah.
But I'm going to direct everyone to what to register now for Gen Live Monday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Can I just say
Different.
one thing though
Yes, of
about, I
course.
mean, the science is always just like, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't leave it till the end because it's just so cool. And I obviously can't talk about it all, but like they've had, I mean, I was in several, I'm a microbiologist. I was in several talks, one about the microbiome, one about AMR resistant bacteria. Then like the next talk, this was yesterday afternoon, was genetics of psychiatric disease. So it's just like the science is so good and so exciting. And actually, when we sat down for dinner at the rounder we were at last night, this genetics about psychiatric disease, which I can't even get into, but like everybody was just talking about it. So it's
Nice.
people are talking. I know we talk a lot about the
Yeah.
technologies, but like there's a lot of talk about the science going on here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's reassuring.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah,
what's the
yeah.
point?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like the whole point of the meeting is like the technologies and then the science it enables.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very good. Well, Gen Live, Monday, noon Eastern. Juliana will be hosting. You heard the four spectacular guests that she'll have on. They've all been at AGBT this week. So they will be, shooting from the hip and no, that's not quite the right expression, but they will be candidly discussing and reviewing everything they've heard, possibly even including the news from Roche. So,
Oh,
Juliana,
definitely.
we'll put a QR code up on the screen so that you can register.
Okay.
So please take advantage. And Juliana, safe travels. Enjoy the rest of the few hours that you'll be there. And thanks again for doing these live dispatches from AGBT. They're fantastic.
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for calling.